I'm Katie Couric. The war in Iraq and support for it continue to unravel. But tonight, the president is hanging tough.
Failure in Iraq would have serious consequences for the security of your children.
Also tonight, teens and car keys, a scary combination. But now there's a new device that helps teens drive more safely and parents rest easier. And they were polar opposites. Later, the celebrity breakup of the week.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. As Congress and the president gear up for yet another battle over Iraq, the violence there continues. There was a deadly attack today in the Green Zone, once considered the safest part of Baghdad. Militants fired a barrage of more than a dozen mortars. At least 3 people were killed, including 1 member of the U.S. military. 18 others were wounded. Meanwhile, as more Americans demand a way out of the war, the president is standing firm. Here's Jim Axelrod.
President Bush hit the road, desperately trying to get out in front of a report expected Thursday, detailing the lack of progress in Iraq and asking for more time for his policy to work.
And we just started. He got all the troops there a couple of weeks ago, and they're now beginning operations in full. And in Washington, you got people saying stop.
But it's not just in Washington. A new USA Today Gallup poll shows 71% of Americans want all troops out of Iraq by next April, except for a limited number deployed for counterterrorism efforts. The Senate is debating a move to do just that, start a drawdown in 4 months and end combat by next spring.
Since the president made his speech on January 10th after the election, when he said there was going to be a new strategy, 590 U.S. servicemen and women have been killed.
The president's allies in the Senate are pushing hard to wait until September and a second report from the top U.S. commander in Iraq before making any strategic changes.
This is literally working. Wait to September and to hear from the general who's brought about a new way of doing business and see if it makes sense to you.
John McCain was in Iraq last week where he saw little progress with the Maliki government. But like Mr. Bush, he says the U.S. can't just leave.
Madam President, I know that senators are tired of this war, tired of the mounting death toll, tired of the many mistakes we've made in this war. I understand this fatigue, and yet I maintain that we as elected leaders with a duty to our people and the security of their nation cannot let fatigue dictate our policies.
The president is apparently determined not to let that happen. A military official who spoke with Mr. Bush recently says the president told him no matter what the final report in September contains, if the top U.S. commander in Iraq recommends the surge should continue, then it will. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, the White House.
No public figure has supported the president's Iraq policy more than Senator John McCain. And he's paid a heavy price for that. His presidential campaign is struggling. And today, Jeff Greenfield reports there was a big shakeup.
I want to mention a few issues.
For the one-time Republican frontrunner, an old blues lyric summed it up. If it weren't for bad news, there'd be no news at all. At the very moment John McCain was laying out his case for persevering in Iraq,
Withdrawing before there's a stable and legitimate Iraqi authority would turn Iraq into a failed state and a terrorist sanctuary in the heart of the Middle East.
2 top campaign aides, manager Terry Nelson and chief strategist John Weaver, announced they were leaving the campaign immediately, a result of staff tensions fueled by campaign cash woes. McCain raised only $11.2 million in the second quarter. He has only $2 million in cash on hand, and dozens of staffers have been laid off.
A day like today, where 2 of your top advisors resign, where they are followed out the door all day long by loyal McCain staffers, is really devastating.
But money woes are only part of the problem. His Iraq views are at odds with more and more in his own party. And McCain's a sponsor of the dead-for-now immigration reform bill that has incensed many conservatives.
These are God's children. They must come into our country legally, but they have enriched our culture and our nation as every generation of immigrants before them. Thank you.
Thank you.
McCain today dismissed the idea that his campaign was in free fall. He told reporters, quote, "I describe the campaign as going well. I'm very happy with it. People are free to make their own assessments. I think we're doing fine." That is not what the Republican operatives I talked with today said, Katie.
And what did they say the reason was for all these mistakes?
Some of it substantive, Iraq and immigration. Some of it an attempt to move toward the social conservatives that alienated independents, never won them favor with those hardcore conservatives. And also they took an insurgent and tried to make him an establishment inevitable candidate, and that wasn't who McCain was or who he is.
Can he come back?
You know, in 1980, Reagan was declared politically dead by one network pundit when he lost in Iowa. John Kerry was supposed to drop out by last fall. We ought to let somebody vote before we decide this, but he's going to have to figure out how to reestablish himself as the truth teller, as the American Churchill, saying unpalatable truths that people are going to say, okay, that's a leader. It is uphill, to coin another cliche.
All right, Jeff Greenfield. Jeff, thank you so much. Meanwhile, charges of censorship tonight in the Bush administration. Richard Carmona, who was once Surgeon General, says he was prevented from speaking out about controversial health issues when he disagreed with the White House position. Cheryl Atkinson with more now from Capitol Hill.
One of a beacon of hope.
President Bush's first Surgeon General today accused the Bush administration of the worst kind of political interference.
Anything that doesn't fit into the political appointee's ideological, theological, or political agenda is often ignored, marginalized, or simply buried.
Dr. Richard Carmona was the president's lead spokesman on health until last year. Today he told Congress he was censored on speeches and kept from talking publicly about issues like the promising science on stem cells and his misgivings about abstinence-only sex education.
Often, the debate that takes place is devoid of scientific information. It's based on politics and political agenda, and that's not good for the American public.
He's not the first to claim censorship at the hands of Bush appointees. James Hansen, a top government scientist on climate change, told 60 Minutes he's been seriously curtailed.
In my more than 3 decades in the government, I've never witnessed such restrictions on the ability of scientists to communicate with the public.
Politicians trying to control the message is nothing new. President Clinton axed his Surgeon General after she expressed liberal ideas about sex education in schools.
I think that is something that it's a part of human sexuality.
In firing her, President Clinton said elders too often differed with his own convictions. But many say the political control has reached new levels under the Bush administration.
Today, the White House put the blame on Dr. Carmona, saying, quote, "It's disappointing if he feels he didn't use his voice to its fullest extent." Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
In other news tonight, the heat goes on. Temperatures today topped 100 again on the West Coast and hit the upper 90s in the east. But the mercury alone doesn't tell the whole story. People who live in urban areas say they get the worst of it, and summer in the city is definitely not easy. And Nancy Cordes reports science is proving them right.
This is what heat looks like. On a day like today, all the traffic and pollution and tall, breeze-blocking buildings conspire to make American cities hotter than the towns that surround them, sometimes as much as 10 degrees hotter. It's not just a feeling, it's a scientific fact with a name: urban heat islands. It's easiest to see by satellite. Those red splotches, the hottest spots on the eastern seaboard, are New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington.
124 degrees.
Today's scorching heat made it a perfect day for this trio of climate researchers to measure how much hotter New York City gets
121.3.
the farther people are from plants that cool the air.
The leaves are down about 96.2. If they go out to the countryside, they know they get this refreshing, cool nighttime breezes, and we don't experience that in New York. We stay hot through the night, and it's sweltering all night long.
Urban heat islands may even have the power to change the weather in the suburbs. NASA scientists believe that in the hot summer months, the areas downwind of big cities like Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, and Phoenix get 10 to 25% extra rain because of hot urban air condensing to form storm clouds.
Those afternoon thunder showers that occur during the warm season that seem random may not be so random after all.
These are some of the main causes of urban heat islands, thousands of hot tar roofs. They're essentially open ovens that can get up to 150 degrees. The architects of this apartment complex in Scottsdale, Arizona estimate that by going green on the terraces and roof, they brought temperatures down 8 to 10 degrees. Cities are warmer in winter, too, but that's cold comfort to urban dwellers sweating it out right now. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, New York.
Firefighters in the West are also sweating it out as they try to get a handle on those wildfires. One of the worst is in Utah, the biggest wildfire in that state's history. Despite the intense heat, crews there are making progress, slowing the fire down. It's burned 469 square miles, but it's still only about 10% contained. Firefighters are now concentrating on protecting a major interstate there. In Florida, a fiery crash today. 5 people were killed when a small plane went down near Orlando, setting 2 houses on fire. The pilot had reported smoke in the cockpit and was trying to make an emergency landing at the airport. The pilot and his passenger, the son-in-law of the late NASCAR chairman William France, were killed. 2 children and an adult inside the homes also died. There's much more CBS News ahead, including Canute the bear. He's grown up and outgrown his human playmate. But up next, saving your teenager's life. This device may just do it. Did you know the leading cause of death for teenagers is car crashes? More than 5,000 die every year, and one reason is the way teens drive. More than 60% admit to risky habits. Of those, more than half talk on cell phones while driving. 46% send text messages while driving. But now, as Cynthia Bowers reports, another electronic device is actually helping teens become safer drivers on the road ahead.
On the road to learning to drive, Cam Cantor hit a rough patch. But unlike most fender benders, his slide off the road was caught on camera, inside and outside the car.
I was completely in shock after it happened. And it was even scarier watching the tape, I think.
The extra eyes mounted just below the rearview mirror are part of a pilot project that lets hundreds of first-time drivers see their mistakes, such as taking their eyes off the road, braking too late, or driving too fast.
You might wonder why a teenager would let you put a camera like this in their car. Even though this one's rolling all the time, it's no big brother. Its memory only hangs on to what happens immediately before and after some kind of driving event.
And those events are emailed to mom and dad, who review them with their teen.
They're seeing what they're doing wrong. They're working at it. They're worried about making mistakes. They want to do good.
Because behind the wheel of a car, mistakes can lead to deadly accidents, like this one in suburban Rochester, New York, when 5 high school cheerleaders died in a head-on collision with a tractor-trailer. The driver, on a restricted license, was driving after hours and with too many passengers.
Looks up.
University of Iowa researcher Dan McGeehee found beginners often think they're better drivers than they really are. The videos provide a reality check.
This really shines a spotlight on their own driving, and they can see themselves that they made some mistakes.
And they learn from them. McGeehee took 25 teenagers who fell into 2 groups. Those who drove well and rarely triggered the camera, about 3 times for every 1,000 miles driven, and those who triggered it a lot, about 19 times for every 1,000 miles. But after seeing themselves, the riskier drivers improved by nearly 90%. One of those was Kyle Madden.
Did you think you were a great driver anymore?
No, I thought I was horrible.
Why?
Because I'd always set it off on about every other corner, and I didn't wear my seatbelt a whole lot.
In fact, he wasn't wearing his seatbelt in his first accident. Luckily, he didn't get hurt, but he was wearing it a couple of months later when a truck pulled out right in front of him and he nearly rolled his car. Researchers have wired teens' cars in Minneapolis now to test the cameras on city streets. But one insurance company, American Family, is already on board and plans to make cameras available to customers in a number of states by summer's end. Parents are hoping lessons learned from some of America's most eye-opening videos will help get their teenage drivers home safely.
Come on, I gotta call you back.
Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Tiffin, Iowa.
And tomorrow night, a growing danger to drivers these days, garbage and other big obstacles that could hit your car as we continue the road ahead. And a car accident in Mississippi today took the life of one of America's best-known political cartoonists, Doug Marlette. His humor was razor sharp. This cartoon published today took aim at techies. I phone, therefore I am. Another recent one had the vice president saying, "Me the people." The comic strip kudzu was another of his creations. Doug Marlette was 57. And one of the most famous faces on television has also died.
All right.
Charles Lane made a living playing curmudgeons on sitcoms, including many episodes of I Love Lucy.
Are you expecting? Yep. You don't seem very excited. Oh. Is this your first? My last.
2 years ago, Lane celebrated his 100th birthday, but he was not ready to retire.
Well, if you're interested, I'm still available.
Charles Lane died last night. He was 102. Meanwhile, what happens if you call customer service at Sprint? Well, if you call too often, the wireless company may hang up on you permanently. Sprint has just told about 1,000 customers it's canceling their service. That's because they'd made as many as 50 calls a month for help with billing and other issues. Coming up next, polar opposites, the breakup of two international celebrities. Finally tonight, the show is over. Canute, the polar bear in Germany who's become an international celebrity, will no longer appear with the zookeeper who raised him. Cute little polar bears have a way of becoming big, dangerous animals. From now on, his will be a solo act. Here's Mark Phillips.
It was always going to end in tears. The cute child star gets too much attention, too young, and it all goes bad. Canute, bear lovers will remember, was the irresistibly cuddly polar bear cub, rejected by Tosca, the mama bear, and Lars, the papa bear, when it was born 7 months ago in the Berlin Zoo. But adopted by zookeeper Thomas Dörflein to the concern of some naturalists, but the delight of the adoring crowds. Canute became big box office. Canute got his own TV show. Canute had a song written about him. Canute ruled. But then Canute grew. The daily 11 o'clock death-defying Canute and Thomas show made a splash. Canute developed a rapport with his fans. And the show welcomed its millionth visitor last week. But the double act couldn't go on. The partners outgrew each other. At least Canute did. Now weighing in at 110 pounds of sharp tooth and claw, he began to confuse his surrogate mother with lunch. Not just biting the hand that feeds him, he bites anything he can get his teeth near. And the zookeepers found that amusing little swim with Canute has become Jaws with claws. So now the Canute and Thomas show has closed. Too dangerous. Canute is taking the breakup hard, searching for a new playmate, perhaps, that he won't accidentally kill. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
And that's the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.